Welcome to the One Life, One Chance podcast. I'm your host, Toby Morse. Today I have a very special guest sitting in my kitchen. I'm very happy he came here today. My friend Jim from Pennywise. Welcome, Jim, to the podcast.
Right on. Thank you.
I'm very happy to have you here. Before we get into everything, but Pennywise has been one of those bands from the West Coast who always looked out for the East Coast bands. They remind me of an East Coast hardcore band, their mentality, their lyrics, their songs. And we played a bunch of shows with you guys during our career, and they've always been great. You guys always looked out for us, so I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here in your beautiful, stylish kitchen.
My whole podcast is interviewing people that have been part of my life in an inspirational way. So I like to go back to the history. Obviously, I'm sure you talked about this a million times, but for the listeners who might not know Pennywise, you were born in Hermosa Beach, correct?
Yes.
And how was that growing up for you there?
You know, Hermosa Beach and the South Bay makes up the three cities of South LA. So it's a little beach community pocket of LA. We always call it the bubble because all of us who live there never really make it out to LA. Like I'm as lost downtown LA as I am downtown Philadelphia. You know, it's like we all stay down in that little area down the South Bay. It's our little hiding spot in surfing. And then skateboarding came out of that. A lot of the industry started in Hermosa Beach. The first wetsuit shop.
Oh shit.
The first commercial skateboard was sold in Hermosa Beach. The first head shop was in Hermosa Beach. they actually sold acid legally for a few months before the government found out. They were selling it out of this place. But then also, super importantly, the music that came out of the place. Yeah. You had the Lighthouse Cafe, which was the original jazz club back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, but mainly the 50s when Miles Davis and Chet Baker played there. Chet Baker had a residency there.
Holy shit.
Miles Davis got in a fight with the bartender there. Like all this really cool stuff happened. Yeah, on the pier in Hermosa. And then the Beach Boys were from Hawthorne, which was next town over. Dennis Wilson hung out on the beach there and was like learning about surfing. And it was Brian Wilson who said, "We got to start a band, but I don't know what to write about." And Dennis said, "Well, surfing's the coolest thing ever. Just write about waves." And even though Brian had never been on a surfboard, they just wrote, tons of songs about surfing because Dennis was into it.
Wow.
So, and he went to the beach at Hermosa Beach. Down in this area, you had surfers, skaters, roller skaters, Hells Angels. You had hippies. You had famous authors. Charles Bukowski hung out down there.
Shit.
Thomas Pynchon lived in Manhattan Beach. So really famous literary people. It was a real artist colony.
Yeah.
And then you had also Maricosta High School, which was a typical American high school, but this was a very working class area. A lot of people in aerospace and the defense industry raised their families there. It's like suburbia really sprawled out in the area. And then, so you had this real class warfare going on. I know I'm giving you a long history.
I love this shit.
This is a whole book.
When you say suburbia, I think about that movie Suburbia too.
Yeah, exactly. So you had all these working class families, but you did have a class warfare down there a little bit of the rich kids, Beverly Hills versus the working class kids down here, that whole thing going on. So you had this the high school there was really a lot of, you had the surfers, the stoners, the cliques, you had the socias, you had the really rich kids.
What are the socias?
So it's like from the movie The Outsiders. That was the social kids,
shit.
With the turned up the Izod shirts, and
nice.
They had a moped while you're on your bike, and that type of thing. So
or your skateboard,
So it was just a petri dish for punk rock to explode because you had the outsiders getting angry that at all this stuff that they're mad at the jocks or the kids that didn't fit in, and Keith Morris was right in that.
Sick.
Keith Morris, came into that world from being out in the desert and moving around a lot, and his dad had a bait shop, and so worked there, and then a record store, And then that's how he met Greg Ginn, but he had a chip on his shoulder about, being beat up by the bigger kids and the jocks and stuff. And so they created a band called Panic, and then that became Black Flag. And then this is an entire story, but, then Circle Jerks came, then Descendants came. And then and all these guys went to Maricosta, one school.
Same high school.
And, it's amazing to think this 1 square mile town produced so much from the Beach Boys to all these great hardcore bands to being really instrumental in surfing and skating. It's like this creative explosion that went on in the 70s was felt around the world. I mean,
there has to be a doc.
Yeah, there has to be.
No, for sure, because everyone hears about LA. They don't hear about this.
Yeah,
awesome.
I know. So we're trying to put together a great documentary. We're crossing our fingers it happens. But I mean, I just saw something the other day, and I know there was a lot of jokes about this, but I think I saw something for real that Miley Cyrus was wearing a Black Flag shirt. And when
it's not a meme. It's like it's not Photoshop. It's real.
It's real. It's like when that's happening, and there's a picture of Henry Rollins on the side of a building in Times Square.
Yes.
And stuff like that little counterculture that started because of a few pissed off kids, became something global, and it affected me a few years younger than them, going to the same school, and you would see Keith Morris walking around, and I got a job at Altadena Dairy just so I could be close to where they practice,
Wow.
And so it's like, that's like for a kid, it's like living in Liverpool and having the Beatles, at the chip shop, or walking around, and Led Zeppelin is, at the YMCA near your house or whatever. It's like you're like, I can do this. These guys are all doing it. And my little cover band, I had a cover band in high school that played like such a crazy range of music. We would play like The Clash, and then that I Melt With You song, on K-Rock, awesome. Or just like anything that was on Rodney on the Rock, and, any type of music so I could get girls and stuff. We were in the school newspaper, Us and the Descendants. I still have it.
Oh, shit.
I have to show it to Milo and the guys and Bill and them, but we got written up in the school newspaper of like Descendants and my band, Joe Nobody.
Joe Nobody?
Yeah. Searches for music success. And Joe Nobody was a name that our friends would say when you go to a party and no one's there, you say, who was at the party? Joe Nobody. No one was there. It was a crappy party.
Here's my question. That bait shop you mentioned that Keith Morris worked at, I think that Milo told me that Bill Stevenson bought his bait from there.
Yeah.
And they kind of were connected by fishing.
Yep. He, Bill, I remember from high school, a couple years older than us, but I totally remember him showing up in the work suit or, been fishing all night.
Holy
and
shit.
He was such a crazy dude.
I heard.
Yeah. And
in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way. Like
person,
an awesome, the whole school was full of freaks.
Yeah.
And one of the freaks there was this guy a year younger than me. It was Fletcher. I remember like, wow, like I do not want to fuck with that dude. He's really crazy. He's tall. Like I don't want to hang out with I don't want to hang out with that guy at all.
I know you spent your whole life with him now.
Yeah.
That's so how was it? How were you in school? Did you like going to school? Were your parents strict? Like, what was your home life like, growing up and stuff?
The thing that for me was my parents weren't really strict, but my mom was a church lady, liked going to church, so I was an altar boy.
Oh shit!
Heavily brought up in the church.
Catholic.
Yeah. No dark stories to tell you about in
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah.
I was in CCD. I was in
Catechism.
Catechism.
I was in that shit. My brothers were too.
Yeah. So the whole time, Sunday, always in church, doing a lot. Hated it. Really boring, really lame. But interestingly, though, I was always really into music and all kinds of bands growing up. But then when I got into high school, I was long story. I was born with my eyes were messed up. I had strabismus as a kid. Got a bunch of surgeries, so I have like lazy eye now. But so it brought out something in me, like when the other kids at school, if I didn't fit in, I would just act out to be weird. So then they would look past it, So I would just like, maybe if I, eat this thing of garbage or like roll around in the gutter in the rain and shit, they'll be like, oh, that, and it worked. You know, it's like, oh, no, he's not just weird looking. He's weird. He's crazy weird. So I had no problem with authority and acting up in class or talking back to the teacher to make the other kids laugh and stuff. So that kind of carried on in high school. And I kind of got in more and more trouble in various instances and
acting out and shit.
Yeah. And partying, going to a lot of parties. I was getting into bands and stuff and playing in bands. And then finally got bounced out of school a couple times. And then after that, after I graduated high school, I was just kind of lost, you know, partying too much. And I became a born again Christian. Wow. So a lot of people don't know that. I
do not know that.
Yeah, that I was heavily into the Bible thumping for a while right after high school and did that for through some of my college, and then met my wife and started playing in bands more and more. And I kind of found the same hypocrisy in the church that I found everywhere else.
Okay.
And it kind of turned me off on that, but still have some spiritual feelings in there. It's a lifelong thing of defining that, what that looks like. But basically the whole high school experience was just a lot of wild times. You know, punk rock was going on. So I would go to bed at night. I had a bedroom downstairs from the rest of the house that had a window to the outside. Yeah. So me and my friend would sneak out. I'd go say goodnight to my parents at 10 o'clock at night, and we'd leave at 10 o'clock, drive out to Hollywood.
Holy shit.
Go see bands, come home at 5 in the morning, and go to school, you know.
You totally fried at school, exhausted.
Yeah, so saw some really good shows, but it was a hectic time, and it's, you know, it's life in the fast lane in Hollywood and living at the beach. So definitely got wrapped up in it and felt like I needed some help getting out of it. And at that time, it really worked.
So you found the religious stuff yourself? It wasn't through your family?
There's a place called Hope Chapel at the top of the hill. And that's where a friend of mine, a girl who was actually one of the first punkers at Maricosta, who's still into it. She's the one that brought me. And she said when she was driving to my house, I'd had a really tough night, and she was trying to pick me up, and she got the spiritual gift of tongues on the way to get me because she knew I was going to convert. Yeah. So she brought me to the church, and it really did help me for a long time. And that's why in a lot of our songs, there's songs like Nothing, and there's a lot of God songs in there, and that's me kind of grappling with it at certain times. So if you kind of look back on that, some of the albums, then it kind of informs that. There's a song called Waste of Time, which is basically me backsliding on, to a 250 BPM. Yeah, so that was my upbringing. It was like the devil on one side and the angel on the other, trying to fighting for my soul, you know. And I guess it's been the same way ever since.
Did you have your brothers and sisters?
I had an older sister, and she married a hardcore surfer, really great guy, and they have a great family, and we're all really close. And I think that a lot of that really helped me as well. I have a really close-knit group of friends that we've been friends since second or third grade.
That's awesome.
And none of them are into punk at all either.
I like that.
You know, they listen to it. They have their favorite bands, but they're in a different scene, you know?
Yeah.
And I was in like different bands in college, kind of like cover bands, but we were writing songs, and then and you know, trying to make a go of it. But I graduated. I went to San Diego State, and then I ended up at UCLA and graduated there.
What was your major?
I was an English major.
Oh wow!
So that's another thing that's important. That when I was an English major at UCLA, I studied American Transcendentalism, so Thoreau, Emerson, and all that stuff, which is, to me, Emerson is the punk rock Bible. I mean, his whole idea is about self-reliance and individualism and stuff like that. It's just punk rock, but in colonial language. So
that's awesome.
And the same thing with Thoreau. So I got really turned on by those ideas in that book. There's a book biography on Emerson called The Mind on Fire, and that's really what it is. It's like it's having your brain be so alive with these ideas of what's important, and definitely put a lot of that into my lyrics as well. And but I basically did the college route and then had a suit and tie job right out here on Wilshire and La Cienega.
Oh, it's close to here. Yeah.
In the Larry Flint building.
Yeah, it's still there. Yeah.
I wasn't working at Hustler, but I was working booking ads on TV and like Price is Right and
Holy
the
shit.
game shows and stuff
What
like
year
that.
would that be?
That was 1990, 89.
Wow.
And then also that's when I met up with Fletcher, came to see my cover band play at a place down in Redondo. And, you know, he's bigger than life. And afterwards I was like, dude, when are we going to jam? He's like, hey, we're looking for a singer right now. And they had just kind of gotten started. Went over and tried out. And, Jason, who lived around the block from me growing up, was in the band. That's why I wanted to jam with them.
Yeah.
So that first stretch of when we started playing shows and we got popular really, really quick. The first party we played was Mayhem, and everyone after that, I was still suit and tie job, you know,
Awesome.
and showing up to work with a broken nose, and my boss was like, who is this guy, you know? And then,
different lives.
yeah. And then it got like, you know, like, well, what do I do? Do I do my suit and tie job and get married and, you know, have the domestic life? But this Pennywise band is doing pretty good.
Yeah.
But scene was around 92. The scene got really violent here. Stabbings, gang fights at all of our shows. And I got, you know, knife pulled on me at a place in Club Lingerie. We played a show. I think it was a show that we played with Green Day too. They opened for us.
Wow, we got a violent crowd.
Yeah, yeah. But no, it was the first time we'd seen them, and they opened up for us at Club Lingerie. So, but things had gotten really crazy then, and
I think around the same time in New York too, actually.
Yeah,
yeah.
So at that point, I just meant like, because of all this doctrine that I believed in, which was pacifism and PMA. I mean, PMA
Love that.
is all Emerson and Thoreau, and so I'm like, man, this scene isn't what I'm about.
Yeah.
You know, and my friend got his ass kicked at a show and for no reason, you know, and I'm like, this is just mindless violence, and I don't want to be the spokesman for that. And then we finally played this show at Raji's, and people, you know, really racist and really lame and all kinds of
It's white power people.
yeah, and Sieg Highland and stuff like that. And I was just, wow, this is not who I am and what I want to be. And so I,
It was scary. That's scary.
yeah, I called Jason the next day and said, hey man, I'm out. And he's all, I understand. And it wasn't until, the surfers and skaters got into it with the Taylor Steele surfing videos that the scene started to change. After the LA riots happened, then the whole surf and skate scene putting our music in their videos, and Plan B and all these cool videos.
After you guys had broken up?
After I left the band,
Okay.
they got Dave Quackenbush and went on tour.
Holy, for real?
Yeah,
I
foreshadowing.
never knew that. Wow, Vandals.
Yeah. And then Jason moved over to vocals, but then about a year later, I had gotten married and stuff and was working, and then I went to a show that they played down in San Diego, and it was all surfers. And like, I'm all, wow, this scene is really cool again.
Yeah.
So we talked, and I got back in the band, and then it was like, after that, signed to Epitaph, started playing. Oh, I'm sorry, we had signed to Epitaph, and then they were ready to do their second album. And it was then that they were working on some songs that I had helped write. And I was like, hey, if we're going to go in, I'll come back and we'll try and make another go of this. So after that, it's history.
Yeah, that's crazy. So your first exposure to music was in school through your peers, right? Keith Morse and them. Were they playing music at the time too? Was Keith and Circle Jerks in school or no?
Yeah.
Like, were you guys doing music in high school?
I was doing cover bands. Fletcher had a band called Con 800. Descendants were playing, and definitely, and were signed and were putting out records
In high school?
Yeah.
Fuck.
When I was in high school.
Yeah.
It was Milo Goes to College, you know.
Crazy.
So they had put out the first EP, and so yeah, it was a crazy eclectic time, because I also had an older sister who was into like David Bowie, and
That's what I was going to ask you. Did she inspire you?
yeah, Cheap Trick, Styx.
Those are all the classics.
Yeah, all that type of stuff. And then definitely Queen. I remember Queen, and I remember Bowie, Queen, and Cheap Trick, and going like, and Bay City Rollers. All these bands were like pre-punk, like they had something going that was, it wasn't punk rock yet, but it was something that was cool that I really, really dug a lot. I wasn't into metal. I hated I hated Led Zeppelin. I hated
Sabbath.
Yeah, I
appreciate it now.
Yeah, I appreciate it now. I hated.
Back then I was like, yeah,
I'm not into it. I had friends who were metalers, and I would just be like, turn that off.
I was like, that's Satan's music. That's some metal shit. So in my punk rock world, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I definitely had an eclectic upbringing in the music scene, but also just listen to Rodney on the Rock, listen to the radio. There's so much stuff, but I was never the punk scene in Hermosa was really hardcore. The OC scene and the South Bay scene were well known by, if you talk to a lot of the LA punk bands, Germs and X is one of my favorite band of all time. They'll tell you
same as Milo. It's Milo's favorite band too. He's told me.
Yeah, they'll say that the South Bay guys and the OC guys ruined punk rock. We all came up there, and because there's a lot of more aggressives, a lot of surfers who like to fight.
It's so crazy when you think about a surf. Growing up in the East Coast, you don't think about surfers, or even California being like this street place. You know what I mean? Like surfers, really, they're violent.
Yeah,
it's like I don't know.
It was no, you're absolutely right. It was really strange, but also look at Tony Alva and that whole scene.
Dogtown,
I mean, it was the mean streets back then.
Were you a skater too?
I skateboarded. I wasn't. I surfed and skated a lot. I mean, it was just our lifestyle,
California culture.
But I've always said that Tony Hawk and Kelly Slater, their trophies are safe when I'm skating and surfing. They don't have to worry about me. I was never good enough. And
you had fun though.
Yeah, I had fun. I did it every day. I surfed before school and after school, and I skateboarded. My knees are covered in scars because I had to bomb the steepest hill. If I took you there right now, you'd be like, you bomb this hill every day of your life. No wonder. How do you have teeth in your face? Because it is the steepest hill in Hermosa Beach, and I lived on 24th Street, and I had to bomb that thing all the time. And but it was a great way to grow up, And I played organized sports, but the surf.
So actually play sports in school.
Yeah, I played a lot of baseball and little league and stuff like that, but surfing and skating was something different about that. The individualism and being out there by yourself and challenging yourself. It really made you help your self-confidence and stuff like that, and challenging yourself. So it was a big part of our local culture, but it also was informed like this whole fuck authority mindset of like you kind of had to be an outlaw a little bit to do this stuff, and it was an interesting way to grow up. It was life in the fast lane. We have cousins who live in Illinois, and they live in this little farm town, and I'm like, we had so much like information coming at us, whether it was drugs or surfing or skateboarding or the jocks at school and all this stuff. It was almost too much activity. Yeah. Where my friend who lives on a farm, they're just like, well, we've got to milk the cows today, and then we're going to go do that.
Different life.
Yeah, different life. I want that now. Now I want to move the country.
Yeah, there is something about leaving the city and going to a small town. Like when I was just in the South right now too, and I just traveling to small towns, these beautiful houses that are way cheaper than here. Yeah. I don't know if I can do it. I've been a city slicker my whole life. I like the energy of the people, like walking out and seeing people. When I see like places around woods, I get a little bit of anxiety, but I don't know. I think it'd be something peaceful for that. I don't know if I could ever really do it.
Maybe we'll split a house somewhere.
That'd be sick.
Idaho.
Get a bunch of people to move to some small community. You know what I mean?
Fat Mike has talked about that.
Oh wow.
That's Mattersville. He's always he wanted to have a place out in the country where all us retired punkers can go and.
I like that.
Hang out.
All of us with no retirement plans and So my other question is that you were saying you were partying in school. Like, what exposed you to the early partying? How old were you when you started doing that?
I remember, like I said, South Bay, Hermosa Beach was a really fast town. Yeah. And so people were selling bags of weed in 6th, 7th grade. Damn. And I remember shotgunning beers, getting the beer funnel out. That was really huge, right away. Like, we don't just drink beers. We put them in a funnel and drink them fast, drink a bunch of them. And hard drinking, hard living, and
Did your parents drink or anything in the house or anything like that?
yeah,
Okay.
yep, and just social drinkers. I
Yeah.
don't come from an alcoholic household, but definitely social drinkers, and you know, it was. I really don't know what drew me to it. I probably just I liked being a wild kid and
Yeah.
just was like, this was something that was
Add
a
to
challenge.
it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And it let my inhibitions go, but at the same time, it got me into a lot of trouble.
Okay.
I knew the principal's office better than any classroom
Fuck.
in the place. And that's why it's kind of funny now, the perception obviously of Pennywise is that it's like these three guys and then this crazy 6'5", 300-pound, you know, manimal dude who's just like, yeah, you know, dude who's like, I'm worried about the Flogging Molly cruise that's coming up. I'm like, who's going overboard? You know, he loves chaos and he's obviously a you know, bigger than life character.
Big teddy bear too.
And so it's like when I came into the thing of being someone who was pretty wild in my own right, but then
You're the most normal guy.
but yeah, now everyone's like, dude, Jim is so mellow and just so whatever. They don't know the whole backstory that
Well, you've been through all that already.
Yeah. I had kind of came to them when I had calmed down, you know, and
Yeah.
I was like ready to take a suit and tie job. But it literally was, Pennywise just took off so fast.
Yeah.
It was like we played a backyard party and there was a ferocious fight. And then someone said, oh, will you play our backyard party? And like 200 people showed up and the cops came and just got broken up immediately. And then we got on KXLU because a local friend heard a demo tape, an EP that we did on Theologian. I mean, they'll get really mad at me when I call it a demo tape. But
okay.
but the DJ said, hey, I know Brett from Bad Religion. I'm gonna give him your tape. And then it was like, then Fletcher came back to my house and said, oh, they want to sign us. And I was just like, this is crazy. We just started playing like 6 months ago. Like,
I know.
How has this happened?
Did you want to do music for a career? Did you know what you wanted to do at that point? You working a job? You just had a cover band and stuff? And
I always wanted to play music. That's why I did it in high school. And there's an interesting story about what was really influential on me is my dad was really hardworking guy. He was a sales rep in the air freight industry. So he was whining and dining closets, but he'd always take the time to play catch with me on the side of the house, you know.
it's awesome.
And I was big Dodgers fan. He'd take me to a ton of games. I was all sports. And then they had to paint my room and took down all the stuff. And my dad was going to put up all the Dodgers stuff, all the pennants and things.
Yeah.
My mom said, hey, let him put up whatever he wants. And I put up Bowie pictures and
Awesome.
and you know, I put all band stuff up. And then my dad, he even wrote something about like that day, like where I went from sports to music.
Oh shit.
And so he was so supportive of it that he, I answered an ad in the local newspaper. There's a band that needed a singer. I'd never sung before. I'd bought myself an electric guitar and was writing and stuff.
Oh shit. Taught yourself how to play too?
Yeah. And
cool.
so I was writing my own songs and he went out and bought me a guitar, a really good guitar, gave it to me on Christmas morning. I have a picture of it.
Yeah.
And then he bought me a PA and a mic to sing through so I could go do this audition.
So supportive, man. That's amazing.
Yeah. And so, and then I tried out for that band. They were playing Clamp Down by the Clash.
Sick.
And 0 Hour by the Plimsolls and like all these cool songs. And so we started playing. I think we were called the Young Catholics for a while.
Nice.
Because we were all altar boys. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. So we started playing, and that was super important because then later on, he didn't graduate college, so he always impressed on me. He wanted me to get my education because he was having real problems at work because he kept getting passed over for employment and the big manager jobs. And
Gotcha.
He actually had big problems with that, and he would come home and every night, you got to get your education, son. You got to get your education. So I did.
It's awesome.
Even though I had, you know,
Issues.
I ended up going to state and then made it to UCLA and graduated. And he was never more proud. But he also got me jobs in air freight at DHL and Emory Air Freight. And then I got the job out here in LA. And then it was amazing because then the day that I said, Dad, I think I'm going to quit my job and go on tour. And he was like, go for it. Like, and I couldn't
awesome,
believe
man.
it. And I made that speech. My dad passed away last year, and I made that speech a lot recently because the song "Same Old Story" was addressed to my dad, of saying like, of someone who has a dad that is repressive, saying, you know, I'm living my life for me. It's like that feeling, but in reality, my dad was really supportive. And
awesome, man.
you know, when he passed away, he had a white Lincoln with the Pennywise bucket hat in the back.
That's hard. That's awesome.
Yeah, so
he came to see you guys play, obviously.
Yeah, yep, and
wow, man.
huge supporter of the whole thing, and having that for me was huge, and and it informed my lyrics. I think there's a lot of people that hear "Same Old Story" because over the years that song for us has really gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, and I think there's a lot of people out there that
connecting to it.
Yeah, struggle with parent issues, whether it's your mom or your dad having expectations for you, and then I've tried to turn that into my own daughters of like, let them find their passion, you know.
Be supportive of it, yeah.
Yeah, so
100%, because your dad was like that with you.
Yeah, it's full circle.
No pun intended. Full
Yeah.
circle. So then Pennywise takes off, and you're just doing that full time.
Yeah.
And so like all of a sudden that's like your career in a sense, I guess, right?
Yep, and it became, you know, touring and putting out albums, and then
you have jobs when you came home. Was it hard to?
Nope. Pretty much after that first tour that we went to Europe, and because the Unknown Road album came out and started doing better, and things like that, that was important.
All your records here.
Yeah, and so, and Bad Religion started doing better, and there's this band called No Effects that was on the label that had
that label at that time, Epitaph. It was magical, man.
Yeah, and I'd go into. I went to the place on, I think it was Santa Monica Boulevard. You know, we'd come up there to talk to Brett, and
that was the original spot.
Yeah, and this guy Brian was helping work in there, and he was in a band called The Offspring, and so I heard that, you know, so we're like, oh, cool, like, and oh, wow, their album's really good, you know, and we all started going on tour together and stuff like that, and we recorded our album in Brett's little tiny little thing. I believe it's still there, but it's right behind the Hollywood Palladium. The first West Beach.
Yeah, West Beach.
And I know I'm skipping around, but like all these bands who started developing bigger and bigger followings, and various things happened. Like we had a mini riot at one of the shows, and you know, and then later obviously. We started going on tour we took Offspring out on this tour, and it was really fun, really great, and they were in a school bus, converted school bus, but it didn't have heat and it didn't have AC or nothing. Total yellow
Another
school
State
bus.
of Mind style.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably where they got it from, but they were. We were back east and it was freezing, snowing out, and it was so cold that it could snow inside the bus. You know, it was.
Oh yeah.
And for some reason they said, "Hey Jim, you want to jump in the bus for the ride up somewhere?" And I said, "Sure, I'll ride with you guys." And we want to play you our new album, and it was Smash.
Damn.
On the Walkman, you know, got the cassette. And I'm laying, you know, everyone goes to sleep, and I'm listening to the whole album, like listen to it like 2 times through, and I'm like, fuck, this is going to be huge. And I came back to our camp the next day, and I was like, dude, the new Offspring album is going to be like giant. And Fletcher's like, tell me when they sell like 100,000 albums. Like, dude, like bullshit. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, we're better than them.
Yeah.
And so, but it was like,
he called it.
Yeah, I was like, no, this album's going to be ginormous.
I think it's one of the top biggest selling independent records ever. Yeah. I think.
And at that time, like bands like Jane's Addiction and more alternative, and Chili Peppers, and it was ready for it. You know,
was Green Day out there, Dookie, at that point, or no?
I can't even remember.
It's around that time. There was this area just like.
But you could tell with Green Day's first EP, like they had the chops too. Like they were writing Beatles with distortion. You know, they were writing faster Beatles songs.
Yeah,
and so that time was just such a crazy time for Epitaph and the music world, because it just
The year punk broke, they call it.
Yeah, it happened so fast, and you're just kind of caught up in the wake of it, you know?
Yeah, and I feel like when people talk about that time, oh, punk sold out and all this kind of shit, I always say that it's because of those bands that it helped everybody else's careers. It trickled down to everybody. The little bands who were just starting, little bands who were pop punk or punk, like all those records blowing up in Epitaph, because then we got signed to that label after that. Like we were like the first East Coast band, then Agnostic Front, Bouncing Souls, all these bands. But it's because of that success that helped all of us.
Right.
And it's like I want everybody that loves playing music to be successful. And it's great when they can make a living off it. I never understood the sellout thing and all that, because bands play music because they love it. And if you want your favorite, it's crazy how people don't want their favorite bands to be successful. They want them for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And the minute more than 10 people come see you in a basement, New Jersey, you're not cool anymore. You know what I mean? Then you get success and people are like, oh, fucking sell out.
Yeah.
And I loved how fucking Brett had those Epitaph shirts that sell out on the front, with Epitaph on the back. It's like he embraced it, but like, that was such a magical time, man.
It was a magical time, and also it actually injected a lot of energy into the punk scene. In the opposite of selling it out, that the scene, besides a few bands, had really come on lean times. You know, a lot of the bands had went metal.
It's true, they crossed over. They tried.
Yeah, a lot of bands had done that. And I remember around that time, 88, 89, it was the Suffer album came out, and Danzig's album came out, and then a couple other things, but I think All was doing some cool stuff. And it was like Brett just had such a good ear.
Yeah.
And Brett's ear was all...
Keep talking. You're good.
All right. The dog's attacking. That's a good guard dog.
What?
That's a good guard dog. Good. Good.
Should we go back there? We're talking about Brett Gurwitz.
Yeah. Brett.
Sorry, that was my UPS man. Sorry.
Yeah.
About Brett Gurwitz.
But Brett had such a good ear. That's how he found you. That's how he found you guys. That's how he found so many. Because he had a great ear for melody. I know for a fact that Brett is a huge Elvis Costello fan. He's a huge fan of melody and lyrics, whether it's Beach Boys, ELO, Elvis Costello, like all these great bands who have such a sense for melodic hooks.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bum anyone out, but I've just never been a fan of the atonal bands that play just kind of straight, whether it's screamo, where there's just no melody. If you got it, for me, you got to be able to hum the hook.
I love that.
Or yell the hook, you know. Yeah. It's got to have something in there, some melody. And Brett was absolutely genius at seeing that in bands, you know.
Yeah. And bringing that out of them too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and also really great in the studio, helping them refine what they're trying to do. And so it wasn't surprising that it happened at this place. I think Brett doesn't like to take a lot of the credit for it, but he was the master behind that. You know, he was the one that came in and found each of these bands, got them to record with the best people possible for the price tag.
Yeah.
And so he just, you know, he revolutionized the music scene. And the people that say sold out, it's kind of like, hey, man, maybe you're just mad that you weren't there.
Exactly.
You know,
most of those people would never even been in the band before, and you know, stayed on people's floors and struggled and sacrificed and missed people's weddings and funerals. And they never experienced any of that hard work to get where they had to go.
And you know, the Ramones wanted it better than anyone.
100%.
Yeah, you know, when Blondie got it, and they tried. They
tried so hard.
Yeah, we want the airwaves.
And they never toured in a bus, which is crazy. They only toured in a van.
Yeah. No, I know.
It's fucking gnarly, man. The way that you know.
And you know, in another documentary, look at a band like Jawbreaker, one of my favorite bands of all time. That band just went through the sellout ringer. with the whole Gilman scene and
oh yeah,
and the people turning their backs on them and stuff. But it's like at the end of the day, it's about the music. They wrote such great music, they want to bring it to more people.
Yeah.
And hey, man, you know what selling out looks like. Selling out is when you see me on a toothpaste commercial and singing Bro Hymn,
Yeah.
That's selling out.
Did you guys stay in the same label your whole career?
Yeah. We later on we did the last album, one of the last albums we did, Reason to Believe. We did it with MySpace at the time because
shit, that's right.
Yeah, they wanted to give an album away for free. Remember, at that time, 2008, everyone thought like music's gonna be free now. It's just everyone's just gonna give their albums away.
Yeah.
So they wanted to do this experiment with giving the record away for free, which we did that. But so for that, just that one record, we went off with Epitaph, and Brett said, "Go, this sounds cool."
Yeah.
He was probably tripping at that time too, going like, "What's going to happen to the industry?"
Yeah,
because it was such a crazy time with
digital and download and all that
and
stuff,
streaming
right?
and
yeah. I remember we went to major label for one album. We weren't allowed to play Gilman Street, and then once we went back to independent, we were allowed to play there again.
Welcome back, guys.
Yeah, and we did that too. We were inspired by like 7 Seconds going on to major and getting more melodic. We were inspired by so many bands that took that chance and just tried to make a different, try to do something different. And Brett was cool about it. And Newfound Glory and Blink were on the label at the time. And then luckily the major labels merged and the whole label crumbled, so we get off for free, get to walk away.
Yeah.
We're very lucky how that experience went. But we took a chance for sure and caught a lot of shit. But we were still the same people in the band, just trying,
Did your songs change?
No, the songs were the same. We still playing, but the record was a little too overproduced for my taste.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of like let my brother take the reins on that record, and that's a whole other story. We already talked about it on the podcast, but just that moment and this trying something different was, why not?
But the heart was still there.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what I think is really important is, is that the heart and soul of the band is still there, and what's important is there. And I know what Epitaph was doing back in the day. Is like we wanted to put out kick-ass records. That's what all we wanted to do. All the rest of the other stuff is chatter and static that doesn't matter. And it's like you guys analyze it after it's out. Because I don't want to. I just this song that I wrote in my garage on my guitar, staring at the wall. What do I feel strongly about? What do I want to put in this song? How am I going to make the chords go that? I wasn't thinking about, man, I wonder if I'm going to get a pool one day, or like, or I wonder how my MTV video. It's like, no, man, the heart was there. I was, especially on an album like Straight Ahead, which we're working on right now. We started playing songs on it because we're going to do a Straight Ahead tour. I was looking at it going like, man, like that song, I was so like embroiled in so much emotion and so many different ideas of like.
That's a great record. We toured the guys. That was 20 years ago. Wait.
Yeah. 20,
shit,
exactly
dude.
20 years. Yeah.
Fuck, man, that's crazy. So also, I want to get you a book too. You put a book out in 2007, right?
Right.
The Punk Rock Dad, No Rules, Just Real Life. When did you? So that's when did you become a dad? Like what year? And you have 3 daughters, right?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah, I know, right? Jesus, that just made me tired. But this is the trippy part of that's the wrong term. This was the crazy part of what happened during that time. Obviously, right when my wife is, we're starting a family is when Jason passes away.
Okay.
And was such a tragic, terrible thing for me and all of us and our community, because Jason was the catalyst. Yeah, he was the glue. He was, but he was a nice guy. Everyone loved Jason.
Yeah,
he had no enemies. He was such a sweet guy, and that's why his lyrics were all PMA. They're always positive, and because that's who he was. And for what happened to him it was such a gut punch. A lot of people don't know all the ins and outs of what happened, but I always expected him to be back in the band. He was going through some tough times.
Yeah.
But I expected him to come back as soon as he dealt with stuff, because I know he wanted to deal with everything.
You leaving, came back and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right at that time, right when that happened, we had our first daughter.
Okay.
And so it's like I didn't have time to grieve because I had to be a dad, man. And this is the heaviest thing, you know, of like you're bringing a child into this world and
losing like a close friend too at the same time. Wow.
And the main guy in our band.
Yeah.
And right at a time when our band was picking up steam and stuff, and I didn't know if I wanted to continue. I was like, man, I'm just going to go back because like this is the reason I joined the band.
Yeah. Which album was that out? Was the album that
Full Circle?
Yeah.
So the one before Straight Ahead, but yeah. So it was such a hectic time. Fast forward to 2007. Now I have 3 daughters and a house and a mortgage and real life shit. And someone said, you know, your life is looks like a book or a sitcom. You know, someone should write about this, being in a touring punk band and raising 3 daughters. And it was so easy. Anyone out there I suggest to write a book, everyone's like, oh, that must have been so hard. And it's like, man, you just talk, just like being on a podcast.
Yeah, I'm trying to write one now, actually.
Yeah, you just start and you start going, you know. And it was basically, I wrote it not to be, and first of all, the title is a pun for me in the sense of I wasn't punk rock. I love punk rock bands, but I wasn't Sid Vicious. I wasn't Darby Crash. I'm not in the gutter with the needle in my arm. I don't throw bricks through cops' windows and shit like that. You know, I was very much the altar boy who liked to party and have a good time and wanted to be in a band. You know, so don't put the punk rock tab on me. I love punk music, but I'm not going to be someone who says I'm punk rock and this type of thing. I can't define. Punk rock is different for every other 100%. Person. So for me, so then the idea of being a punk rock dad who defines authority for your kids and your family and stuff like that, it didn't make sense. It's silly. Like, how can you be a punk rock dad? Well, yourself and all these other dads now have figured that out.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it's actually pretty rad. It's actually pretty cool. You can be a very attentive, present, understanding, cool dad when you're a punk rock dad. So
100%.
That's what I was trying to get out in the book, is that, man, I'm a screw up. I'm having kids. I don't want to fuck them up. I just want to try and do the best I can, not be too overbearing. Crazy things are going to happen. You're going to have to deal with.
You're balancing tour life with real life.
Exactly. And all that type of thing. And, you know, that's basically what happened. The second time I had to leave the band is because that pressure got to be where I felt like we had toured so much on that Reason to Believe record. Yep. We had toured a lot. And I was ready. I'm like, man, I got to get home and hang with my kids for an extended period of time. Like, I need a hiatus because we were starting to have some issues with the kids missing me. And not just missing me, but it was affecting things, you know. And
I know how it is to have one kid in travel. You have 3 kids. I can't even imagine.
3 kids.
To balance that.
Into middle school age, and things are happening. And then another thing you got to remember, a lot of these other bands on the label, a lot of them came from divorce. A lot of broken families in the punk rock world, and that's all true. And that sucks. And I didn't
broken homes and shit. We all came together, misfits and different lives, and fucked up home lives for sure.
Yeah, and so I didn't want that to happen to my family, and I was like, I need a break right now, and they didn't want to, you know. And so you're the
only one with kids in the band at that time.
Randy.
Okay, that's right.
Had a couple kids, but it was just right at that time we were having some issues, all kinds of stuff going on. A lot of people think like, oh, Jim left the band to be with his kids, and that's the easy answer. But it was a point where I just wanted to take a break. You know, we needed a break from each other.
Dysfunctional family being in the band.
Yeah. And we needed a break from each other. Like, I really needed a break because our recording process is so contentious that we fight a lot over how the song should sound. I definitely have a different opinion from Fletcher on how we should sound, and how a band should be produced and whatnot. So we had just been fighting cats and dogs like that. And I would come out of that recording and record releasing process of butting heads so much over everything from the artwork to the this to that. We'd always be fighting. And then it'd be like, okay, the album's out. Now we're going to go tour it for 2 years. And then you're like,
that was even fun to make it.
Yeah, yeah.
Now we go celebrate it.
Yeah, as much as I would be like, fuck, I love that song that I wrote.
Yeah.
It was such a painful birthing process to get it out.
Yeah.
Now we got to go, now that we just had all those fights to get it out and release it, now we got to go tour around on a bus together and have the issues of touring. So after 20 years of that and everything that happened, I was like, man, I need a break. I need a break.
Were you worried about what you're going to do at that point?
You know, I couldn't have done it at the worst possible time. This is 2008. There was a global recession descending upon us. So that tells you how much I needed a break. You know, and I told the guys at a certain point, like, look, you know, I'll probably do my own record because I've always wanted to do that, and then I'll probably go to work with Havoc, which is this VOD channel I was working with, and it's like, you don't have to worry about me, man. Like,
yeah,
you know, if this is your guys' decision that you want to go on and, you know, get something else and not let me take a break, you know, it's like, all right, you know.
It must be hard though too, man. I can't even.
Yeah, so Fletcher and I see that break a different way, you know, of how that was, but that's how it felt for me. I just needed a break, you know.
Yeah,
and
you're fucking human, dude.
Yeah, yeah. So
you're not a machine.
It ended up being a good thing, I think, in the sense of I got to be able to go out and put out a record that I'm really proud of, and I did a little bit of touring with the guys, and kind of got back in the van and felt what it was like to do that. So
yeah.
I got to play guitar and set up my own gear, and
it's awesome,
and hump my own gear and stuff like that, and it was a really good experience. That one tour that we did of Europe that someone was really angry about, because we got talked into doing a longer tour of Europe than I'd ever done with Pennywise.
Oh shit!
So they weren't happy about that, because they thought, you know, their opinion was that I left because I didn't want to tour. And then he puts out a record and then goes on a long tour, so they got a little bitter about that. But the thing is that tour actually really reminded me what it was all about, and it's not about all those politics of putting out the record and all this other stuff. It's about writing music and enjoying playing it, and doing it with guys who you're having fun playing with. And the last tour we didn't have fun, you know. There was this, we had hectic fights the last Warped Tour that we did. I think Fletcher broke down the door in the back lounge of the thing, fighting with Byron over something, and you know, we were not getting along. We were pretending we were getting along, but we weren't getting along, you know. And
it sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. And
it's good to step away, because some bands continue that to this day, that are only doing it for business and money. They have separate dressing rooms, don't even talk to each other, play their songs and go home and never see each other.
Yeah.
You know, so it's good that you could be honest and tell them this is how you're feeling and step away from it and not fake it. You know what I mean?
Do you want to know something interesting? I'm going to out myself. We actually went and saw a therapist as a band once things of like being able to because email sucks, man. I'll tell you one thing: emails and texts,
they can come off really
wrong,
aggressive or whatever. Yeah,
yeah. Because someone texts you something aggressive, you text something aggressive back. You know, and I'm the same way. I give as good as I can get. Yeah, and so many and so many thoughts go through your mind when you're writing that email, and then there's that one thing, and then this thing, and that when you're just trying to solve one small question, like, hey, do you want to go to Chile on this next tour or not? Like, why are we arguing about
the floodgates open? What are you really feeling?
Yeah, all that stuff. So
send it. It's like a big ass email. Yeah,
I've actually talked to Art Alexakis about this before. We both talked about being a counselor for a band or being a therapist for bands, because they really do need it.
100%.
And once we got in that room, even though there's still conflict, at least we were four guys like, all right, I'm going to say my piece now. At least I'm going to get it out, you know? And you crazily find all these misunderstandings. Like, man, I didn't know you felt that way at that time, you know? And I didn't know you saw it that way, you know, of like
people keep things inside, they don't say anything about it.
Yeah. And then so I think a lot of bands could benefit
Yeah.
from having that communication, because guys like us, we bottle it up. You know, guys, girls, doesn't matter. Unless you have that communication where you can talk about things, you know, it'll just be the next explosion.
So how was the therapist? Was that a good experience?
It was a good experience. We did it a couple times. A lot of now whenever we have a conflict, like, we better get another session in, you know. But
I think it helped though, for sure.
Yeah,
Bring
I
some
think
things to light.
Yeah, bring some things light and have some understanding about various things, and you know, it's a push and pull. You know, obviously, Fletcher wants to be on the road 364. You know, come home and get fresh underwear and go back out.
Yeah.
I can't do that. You know.
Yeah.
And
but you have kids too. It's different.
Yeah, yeah. And but you know, the other guys probably want to do more than I want to do. I just have, you know, I mean, I know you guys tour a lot. A lot
But
of
not
bands.
as much. Yeah.
Yeah, and
2 weeks is good.
2 weeks is good.
We did 24 in a row that summer. I thought we were gonna kill ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
We were so. It was so easy in the bus. We did 24 shows, but after that, we were fucking wrecked, and we're like, we're never doing that again.
Yeah.
We're not young anymore, you know.
Right. You know, we did. I heard you guys did that, and I was like, dang, dude, more power to you. How do you guys survive that? But I've talked to other guys too. Talked to guys in Rise Against and various people, and a lot of people have a 2-week rule. Some people have a 17-day rule, but then you see other bands, you know, they go out for 5 weeks, and
Crazy,
you know,
man.
Fletcher's like, shit, man, Bad Religion just did a month and a half in Europe, you know, and I'm
But
like,
there's
well,
no-
they're all divorced.
And there's no way they're doing all those shows in a row either, man. There's like many days off and shit like that. You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. You know, it's
Was writing that book and putting that book out very therapeutic? In
yeah.
a sense.
You know, it prepped me. You know, the girls were still very pretty young at that time. You can tell by the cover it was around middle school age. But I really loved to write. I want to write a lot more. I got a lot of books in my head and a lot of ideas that I want to put out there. I'd like to do a self-help book for punkers, for people like us. I'd like to do a bunch of short stories that I've written about the scene, and just that are like half truths about growing up in the LA punk scene and stuff like that. And not only that, but just like stories off the top of my head. So I want to do more of that type of thing, but it was very therapeutic. And plus you have to have a discipline to get on whether it's typewriter or the pad and paper or the computer every day and sit there and write. And I did it in the back of tour buses. I did it in hotel rooms. I did it in my
being in the mix of everything too.
Yep. And you just got to put in the work. And there's a really good book out there I recommend to a lot of people that struggle with writer's block or things like that. There's a book called The War of Art.
Okay.
Stephen Pressfield, that is about the resistance and all the things that are going to put up resistance towards you doing that art every day.
Okay.
Whether it's going to be I got to send some emails, or I got to respond to this, and what is urgent and what is important, you know, and define these things. So he really sets out some really great guidelines.
That's awesome.
And then the other thing is you have to turn pro. That's the second thing.
Turn pro?
You got to turn pro.
Okay.
You're not from being someone who's like, I'm just kind of doing this. Like, no, I'm a professional podcaster. I'm a professional songwriter. I'm a professional author.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how you put in the work is like getting all those things that put up resistance to you achieving those goals. So
I like that.
Yeah. So that's something that's really important right now that I'm trying to keep my focus on writing. I've got a little website called punkguru.com that I want to do more of. That's about the book world and punk rock books and things like that. So being an English major at UCLA, I got really into reading.
Awesome, man. Yeah. I didn't know that about you. That's amazing.
Yeah. Super into books.
So now, that book's out, and now you're not in the band no more.
Yeah.
Right? So where do you go to work at that point again? What did you do?
I put out the Black Pacific record on Side One Dummy with
the tour
with Joe Sib.
Yeah.
Did some touring, and then we had a company called Havoc Television, who did surf, skate, snowboard clips for video on demand. So it's just like watching a music video, except you're watching 3 minutes out of the latest skate video. Cool. Or the latest surf video, and then also music videos. So we had all the Epitaph bands, all the punk bands, you know, And during that heyday, it was really, really cool. We were on all the best, all the best cable channels and things like that. So that was really cool. And went back to the old office job, but working.
Was that weird transition?
Not at all, because I was working with bands and
still in the mix.
Also, I developed this thing called Havoc Cares, where I went around and worked with all the endemic nonprofits that are involved in surf and skate. So Boarding for Breast Cancer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Life Rolls On with Jesse Billauer. God, we went through all of them, all the best ones, the surf, skate, and music-related charities, and went there and tried to shine a light on what all these good people were doing. That's
cool.
That's been something. I was on the board at Surfrider for a long time, so that's always been something that giving back thing is like, it's really important to me to have that in our music, and we do a lot of benefits and stuff like that. So that was like going in your flannel shirt and hanging out with other skaters and stuff.
Cool.
So
it was like corporate shit, like
and taking a 2-hour lunch and.
So how long was that gap when you went in the band? How many years did that one for?
That was like 2009 to 12, so I'd say about 3 years.
Were you talking to the band at all during that time?
Oh, hell no.
Wow. And was it? Do you have any opinions or thoughts on what was weird? Like the band was touring without you? Did you just totally block it out? Who gives a fuck?
I
keep moving my life.
I totally blocked it out.
Yeah.
Didn't listen. Didn't pay attention. And
me personally, I couldn't imagine like.
Oh yeah, try and imagine it.
Yeah, and like I know how tight in with my band. We hang out. I'm sure it's the same, but we hang out a lot. I talk to my band every day. We're like best friends, and that's really more important to me than the music or the money. Is that we're still friends, and I knew Rusty since I was 13, and that I couldn't imagine them going on and be putting somebody else in there to replace me.
Right.
I can't even imagine that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
So you obviously you have a family, you have a life. You're just fucking moving forward.
Yeah.
And so a couple years pass.
Yeah.
And then you put the other effort out.
Yeah.
During that time.
Yeah.
Which I fucking loved, but I think there should be a part 2 where it's all East Coast bands. I think there's one East Coaster, and I think it was Al, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I fucking love that doc. I love so much about it.
Yeah.
But I think it should be a part 2.
You should. We should.
That'd be really cool.
You and I will do it. The girls who did it were friends of mine. I've known Kristen, one of the producers, since I was a teenager too. We'd go on American Bandstand together, and I saw X play on American Bandstand.
Holy shit.
That's crazy.
So did the book inspire the doc?
Yeah, the doc. And then that was just as easy as getting some of my friends, hey, you want to do this thing? But it was all kind of out here. We did have, we were on the Warped Tour, and we did a couple guys.
I forgot what it was. Was it Rise?
Yeah. And we had Tim from Rise, and we had a few people that they ended up not getting everyone in the whole thing. But I totally agree. I think that documentary, there was parts of it that just ripped your heart out.
Yeah, man. I love Lars at the playground too. That's one of my favorite scenes.
I mean, it was funny. You laugh, you cry.
Some other heavy shit, like seeing like the balance of balancing family life and going on tour, because we have this luxury of being able to go on tour and do what we love with our friends, and then we come home, we have to be like parents, and we have to balance all that, and like you said, not miss. Like I'm about to not play a show coming up on this tour because I'm not going to miss my son's birthday. I never miss his birthday, and I had to cancel one show because I'm not going to miss it. That's my number one. You know what I'm saying? So like balancing that, the music, and then the real life of like being a good husband, being a good father, being there, fucking driving them to school, and then like, you can come home from tour. Like I come home from tour last night from Europe, and I'm fucking totally jet lagged. But Monday morning, I'm driving my kid back to reality. All that, just balancing that and seeing that.
Every family movie ends with the dad who is not going to make it to the piano recital. It's always that thing, and the kid's on the piano or the ballet.
He works locally.
He's looking at the door. Yeah, I know, but he's being a jerker.
Yeah.
Something's going on, and so I had that a lot, man. I'll never forget.
Damn, dude.
I was in Europe, and my daughter got soccer player of the year for the whole league, or something like that, like the biggest award. And, didn't know she was going to get it, but she got chosen at this huge soccer benefit. And I was like, called her on the phone, Dad, guess what? I won player of the year. And like tear rolling down the
Fuck
cheek.
yeah.
I'm so happy for you, and I'm so bummed that I'm not there. And so there was moments like that, and that's why I had to keep the balance. And
So important, man.
and at that time when we were having these issues with the kids, having some trouble adjusting and certain things in the middle school time, and I was like, hey man, my family needs me right now. I don't care if you guys want to go to fucking Brazil for the 40th time. I'm going home and hanging out with my kids.
Yeah.
And I also knew that
you never get those moments back, man.
We had just came off a tour that was a Jägermeister tour.
Okay.
And I didn't want to do that tour. And the rest of the guys wanted to, got voted out, and we went and did it, and it was, the partying was full tilt. And I was like, we need a break, everybody.
Yeah.
We need a time. And it was like, at that time, it was like, oh, we don't want to take a break. We want to go to Brazil right now and do some more. And it was like, they're like, we'll hire you a nanny if that's what you need. And it's like, no, man, that's not what I need. And so it was tough. I remember the day on the beach very well, where I got a long email from the guys, and it was like, everyone says you're the problem and all this type of stuff. And it just broke me. I just went,
I can't imagine, man.
Yeah, I just went, if we just toured more, we'd be bigger, and, all the stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, I got to go.
I think Pennywise's career and their longevity is just fine.
Yeah, yeah. And
it's just fine. I mean, I get it. I know people, they want to keep grinding, I get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they also have to respect each other's lives too.
Yeah,
everybody has
exactly.
a life outside of the band.
And I think that the good thing about coming back is like that. I'll never forget, Fletcher called me like right at the perfect time, right when I was deciding of like, all right, what am I going to do next? Because Havoc was, having some issues and stuff like that. I'm like, well, what's going to happen right now?
Were you missing playing with them?
You know what? They had just put out the record on Epitaph, and I was definitely bummed out about a couple things.
Did you listen to it?
I listened to a little bit of it.
Okay.
And the thing that bummed me out really bad was that they put a big Pennywise on the cover, fluorescent green, and made it look like the Full Circle album. And that was like, I was like, okay, like it just kind of hurt. Like that Full Circle album is a very, very important album.
It's a great record.
And that kind of was like a stab in the heart. And I was like, this. And another thing that's important to know is like, the South Bay was everyone supported Pennywise there, but there was a big fracture when I left the band of people like either you're with Jim or you're with Fletcher and everybody.
Wow.
And you're not allowed to go to Jim's shows and this type of thing, and there's kind of back and forth like that. And right before Fletcher called me, I was in the kitchen with my wife and like kind of, what are we going to do next? And I thought, man, how rad would that be if I just got back in the band and we just healed all this shit, like all this hurt and lame shit. And because I don't hate any of the guys or like we've been through so much together. And that time, that's where they were in their lives. They were like, I know for a fact there's times over the years where Fletcher was like, man, I don't have kids and we're in a successful band and people want to see us play and we owe it to the fans. We got to be out there on the road. We got to be playing. You're bringing me down. You're dragging me down, And so it just finally got at that point for him. He was just like, dude, if you got to go be with your family, we're going to go, we'll get someone else. And, we got the songs now, And so,
still a hard pill to swallow. Though,
yeah,
sure.
Hard pill to swallow. So, and it was kind of like, I sort of got the guy is clairvoyant because like a week later, I'm like, man, what if I got back in the band and, we could heal all this stuff and the whole Pennywise family that we're the Brohim band. We're supposed to all be bros.
100%.
Bros don't not speak to each other,
Yeah.
And literally he called me up on the phone and was like, hey, what's up? Want to talk? And I was
After
like,
a couple of years. Wow.
yeah. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm doing this. And it was that quick. It's like, boom, back in, went to Brazil a week or two later.
How were your daughters at the time? I know you said they were young. I'm sure that if you talked about it now, like how much they appreciated you, like, just I'm coming home with my family, like I'm not doing that anymore, because it was hard for them to see you travel all the time. They're probably so psyched to have their dad home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I hope so. That was,
I'm sure. I'm just saying, like, you know.
It's probably nice when I was gone and they could do whatever they want. But no, I mean, it was good for me because I had a stretch at that really crucial amount of time to be there for the soccer games, and be there for the choir recitals. My daughter was big into choir, and I loved going to all that stuff and being a part of their lives at a very crucial time instead of being the absent guy. But also one thing is very important is that we didn't tour as many bands all through our career.
Yeah.
And because I had kids. So they were very cool about doing 3 weeks in Europe instead of 5. And so they did kind of bend over backwards over those years to not tour as much.
Sure.
But there was just always if we would just go 3 more days, and
just pushing it a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So those, but this is every band,
Of course.
I hear
all
same
dysfunctional
thing.
family. We love and hate each other. We're brothers for life.
Right.
You signed up for that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think that's one thing that's cool that we celebrate. This song, Bro Hymn, which is so important to us. It is
international anthem. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. But it is celebrating friendship.
Yeah.
The good and the
Brotherhood.
bad.
Yeah.
And the tragic things that can happen. And we're probably all going to more funerals now than we want to, but being there for your friends and it's such a healing song. I talk to people all the time, that song is so important to them.
Huge impact on so many people.
Yeah.
Did you realize when you guys were writing it, when it came out, how big it was going to be?
No, not at all. And we came, because Jason brought it in at the very end of recording.
Wow.
And he's like, oh, let's do this one. And I literally we had written all the songs and done the whole album, and I didn't hear it until it was kind of one of those like, well, what about this one riff that Fletcher had and Jason wrote these lyrics to about our friends that had died in high school. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'll just go in there and sing it, just like you just showed it to me. He's like, I just went in there and sang it. And then we're all, oh, let's get all our friends in here to sing the background part. And it was like, it happened that quickly. But then it just, over and over the years, it just got more and more important. And until now it's a soccer chant at football games. And
it's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's nutty.
It's such a powerful impact song. So when stepping back into the band after those couple, you just was like riding a bike, you got back in, everything was normal, everything was good.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Did you guys have like a sit down first, like moving forward, here's the new rules, or?
I sat down with, went out and talked to Byron, had a night out together, and talked to Randy, and then kind of sat down and we went to La Panita and had a lunch. And, I didn't want to come off too strong of being like, things are going to be different now.
Yeah.
But one thing I did say, I was like, man, this band is more important than the partying and this stuff. And this has the band has got to come first.
Music,
yeah. This has got to come first over that stuff. So that was important. And that, has been something like to this day. It's like, man, getting up there and playing the shows and playing good music for our fans is priority number one. And then it was just like riding a bike.
Was it feeling coming back? Did you feel like it felt great to be back? And
you know what? We went.
What was the first show you played?
It's ironic is that I left because I didn't want to go to Brazil, and they had a tour of Brazil lined up.
Oh.
And things weren't ideal with the singer they got. It wasn't just the broken back or the back problems that they were having issues.
But it's not you. It's not you.
Yeah. And I think, I talked to him a few times during the band, and he was hoping I would come back as much as they enjoyed it.
So you guys are friends, yeah.
Yeah, and they did their thing. But then it was like, oh, well, we're going, literally, Fletch like, well, we got some shows in Brazil lined up. You want to go? And I'm like, cool. But I don't think we've ever played better than that tour of Brazil, because I was back and it was like we challenged ourselves and started playing all these songs that we didn't usually play. And
a reborn kind of.
I remember that first show back, we were like, there wasn't one beer on that stage. It was like, man, we're going to slam right now, and we're going to play as hard and fast as we could. And I think ever since then, we try to have that mindset. But
yeah, they're making the new record with them again and stuff, and all that stuff must have been great.
Oh yeah. Well,
same kind of studio shit, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But everyone has that. It's hard to write songs with a bunch of dudes and not want to beat each other's face in.
So what I love about learning about you today is that like your English major and all that, you always had not just a plan B, but you always had education and stuff you could fall back on. Like there was, because you were coming and going so much and you doing all this other stuff. I love that, because some people just have like, all I have is the band. I got nothing else. Like you always had stuff you could fall back on. I think it's really smart.
Yeah, and also, but the truth is, I don't want to overplay the education cards, because my dad did to me. He said this is crucial, because this is my experience, that I got passed up for promotion over and over because I didn't have a college education. Whereas there's other people, and the majority of my friends in my life don't have a college education. It isn't the end all be all. You can get an education on the streets of life. Some of the biggest, the most successful businessmen out there don't have their education. It's up to the individual to do what's right for them, if it's something. And you can go to some school and get a crappy education. So
a lot of people, they have their majors that they graduate with, never even do what their major was in real life.
Right, exactly. Yeah, sometimes it can be a total waste of time.
Yeah.
For me personally, I found Emerson and Thoreau, and it totally informed my songwriting. I think
awesome.
Becoming, there's some major things. It was being an altar boy and a born-again Christian, and going through that segment, then Emerson and Thoreau, and then also Jason. Jason had that PMA mindset without going to school or reading Thoreau or any of that type of thing. I got it at school, but he got it just from being that kind of person.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And so that really informed all my songwriting, is having those influences.
Yeah. One thing that you're going through now that I'm going to be going through soon, and it's interesting. My wife has to walk in during this part of the interview. The conversation is that
Hi, Moon.
Is that the whole leaving the nest thing, where you have grown daughters now, right? Who are leaving the nest. And that whole thing scares me, because I'm so connected with my son. You have 3 daughters.
Yeah.
Are 2 of them already gone out of the house now?
My oldest took a job in Chicago, came home for 3 days after graduating, and
holy shit.
Literally, they don't tell you that they don't always come back, and that's been a trip. And,
I can't imagine.
And she was like, I thought would be the least independent, but she went to school and was just like, didn't hear from her for a week, and then quick call, everything's great, I'm having the best time of my life, okay, bye.
Damn.
Whereas my middle girl, she's at Oregon, but she's studying abroad, and she calls 3 times a day and sends 90 pictures, and and is always. But
is that hard when they leave the nest? Is it hard?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you want me to pretend it's not.
No, I don't want you to be honest as fuck. I'm already an emotional person, so I'm already dreading it. Like,
I walk around the house right now and look at their empty bedrooms. We're having friends over to stay the weekend, and so I had to clean out some of her closet stuff, and you got to just go into full denial mode. Like, no, that doesn't hurt. That's fine.
That's rough.
My heart's breaking, but it's fine. It's going to be fine.
That's a scary thing. That's the main thing I'm kind of dreading. You know what I mean? Is like
but
leaving the nest and
you guys have a great relationship, and it's so cool that your boy loves everything that you love. And that's really important. And but everyone's different. You're going to have kids get into different things. You just, what's amazing is that, because I think parents like us are so much more involved.
Totally.
It's like that we can have a really profound influence on their lives and their choices. I mean, our thing is always make good choices. That's all we care. Here's the bad choice.
But just like how your dad was, you being very supportive of things you want to get into, but just make sure you have the education, but all this other stuff you're into too, I back it also. I feel like with my son too, like he wants to be he's a drummer, he plays piano, he hates school, but he does good in the classes that he like actually pays attention, likes, just like I was. But I'm like, you have to have a plan A, B, and C, but also do it. I believe whatever you can do, just focus on it, work hard for it, and we just have to be supportive of that way too, and keep that communication going. Yeah. Yeah, it's just scary. It's just thinking about like just them being out there in the world and shit, and not really need. Obviously, they don't need you, right? They always going to need you, but not really need you to be there all the time and shit. You know what I mean? Like
my wife said, because at the teenage years, you start getting in more and more conflicts, and they start acting up, and it's like, oh, this is what helps you let them go. Is when they act like assholes.
Act like jerks.
You're like, actually, why don't you beat it? Yeah, exactly. But that's part of the thing. Like that's just like the little bird in the nest kicking the little bird out. All right, go give it a shot. But lucky we have iPhones and FaceTime now, so that really did help. It's crazy how much
touring
that
and stuff too.
I could get on the FaceTime and they would just prop me up on the counter during dinner and stuff, and I'd just be kicking back in the hotel room, pretending I was there.
While you were on tour.
Yeah, doing FaceTime.
Yeah, we did that too with Max when he was younger too.
Yeah.
Somebody said something too that was really interesting about like how you don't own your children. Like you raise your children, they go, you don't own them. They're gone. Like it's just, you don't have them forever. You know what I mean? In a sense, it's.
Oh, just yesterday, they were fighting about who's going to get the new iPhone. If if she gets the iPhone, I can't, then I have to get the new iPhone and all this stuff. And then my oldest finally said, I'm an adult. I can get whatever fucking phone I want to get.
It's totally true.
It doesn't matter to you anymore of what phone I get. I'm like, oh man, you're right. Darn it, that's hard.
Well, you were saying how it's so hands-on. I feel like that's part of the careers we chose as far as being musicians. Because when you're home, you're home. You're in between tours. You're there with them. You know what I mean? Like
right. Yeah.
So unlike people that go to jobs every day 9 to 5. And then come home at night or whatever. Like when you're home, you could be home for a couple weeks or months at a time.
Yeah.
You're with your kids.
I had
awesome.
I asked all of them at one time. I said, "Do you consider your dad someone who is gone all the time or who is around all the time?" And they all said, without missing a beat, "You're around all the time," and that was really important. I was like, "Thank God you said that, or else I would have really had an issue with myself."
Yeah, but they know how much you've tried to balance it all and be there for them. You know what I mean? They know, they see that, they feel that. You know what I mean? Like, so especially everything we just talked about, like leaving the band, coming back, and all that, just not missing their stuff. And like I was saying earlier, is that we have one kid. I can't imagine having 3 kids and balancing all that touring life and being there for your 3 daughters. You know what I mean?
It would be easier to be like, oh, well, at least we have a 30% chance that one of them's going to stay.
Yeah, I know, right? I say that my youngest, I'm like, don't work too hard in school because you're not going anywhere. You're going to take care of your mom and dad and just work from home at some point. But I remember, at certain times and them, them like having different issues and me being out on the road, it was like really important for me to like get on the phone or talk to them and just let them have it out. Vent or whatever. It's about being present, whether you're physically present or not.
100%.
It's like you're involved in their stuff. I mean, almost probably too much. But I think it was Flea in the other F Word movie who said that, and he teared up when he was saying it. He's like, because knowing his dads and the 70s dads were kind of different, of like, going to work and kind of come home, have their cocktail,
have their beer, watch
have a
game,
cocktail, pat the kid, and then go.
Kind of angry, yeah.
Yeah, and you saw him tear up because he's like, man, I'm going to be present for my kids. Like that's the difference, because probably not much as he loves his dad.
Such a different generation we are too.
At
you know.
the time that he was interviewed, did he have a kid, like a young one?
He had.
So he was like prepping himself.
Yeah. Oh no, he had his daughter's interviewed in it. She was probably 20 years old by that time.
Yeah, kids early. That's right. He did.
Yeah. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a trip.
It is a trip. What do you think you credit your longevity to with Pennywise in your career? Because you guys are a career band.
I think it's the songs. The songs, like I said, we were just playing some songs we haven't played in a long time. They still have meaning. Yeah. And a lot of them are really emotional. If you get down to it, they're about conflict. They're about God. They're about parents and all that type of thing. That resonates with people, if you're just writing a song that's shake your ass on the dance floor, it's different. People feel those songs and they want to come, and that's why our album shows do so well, because people are like, man, I've been waiting for you to play that one song that's about that thing that man,
You connect.
I'm going to go up and I'm going to raise my fist when you sing that one line, because that one line makes it for me, you know?
Yeah.
And you know, so it's definitely just the songs, you know, if we didn't have those, you know, it's just a bunch of dudes from Hermosa goofing around on stage.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy you guys been around this long, since everything you guys been through, to all the ups and downs. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That means it just, there is like a brotherhood there, regardless of all like the obstacles, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like, it speaks volumes of the band and how much people love your band still and are still getting into your band, you know?
Yep. Yep. It's a trip to see the kids at the shows, young people, you know, people bring in their kids and stuff. And that's why we, you know, we're still doing it.
I feel like a poser because I didn't realize till recently when the It movies came out that Pennywise was named after the clown. And that's true, right? That's factual.
Yeah, I know. It kind of sucks for us now.
After the book,
ever since the movie came out, now when you Google search Pennywise, it's just pictures of an evil clown. There's no more pictures of Jim and Fletcher and Byron and Randy. It's all pictures of a scary clown.
Wow. So yeah, that's a legit where it came from.
Yeah, yeah.
So the band, who named that band?
Our friend Steve Martin, and I had.
Oh, he's a great actor. I love him.
Yeah. He's a funny dude.
There's another Steve Martin too, but not from, but it's not him.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a different Steve Martin.
Yeah, this just a local good guy, surfer. He had read the book It by Stephen King, and this character in the book is a evil clown that, if you read the book, he can shift shape into whatever scares you the most. And so it makes kids confront their fears.
Yeah.
And so we all thought that was really cool when you consider so much of the hate in the world and the violence.
Flipped it to a positive thing.
It's about our fears and confronting your fears. And that's
it's deep, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like, oh, I found the name for your band, Pennywise. I'm like, all right.
I never even knew that, man. It's crazy, man. I feel like such a poser.
If you haven't read it, the book is better than all the films.
Yeah, that's my friend told me too. Skiba told me that actually.
Yeah. It's scary.
I didn't even know that when I did the Brett Gurewitz interview. That I found out later that that the epitaph E was a fucking gravestone. I never thought about
my friend Fred did that too.
Really?
Yeah.
Did that design?
Yeah, Fred Hidalgo did our first album. He's like my good friend growing up, surfer and artist. He did our album, 3 or 4 of our albums. And then, no, even more than that, 4 or 5 of our albums. He did Smash. He did Recipe for Hate. He was Epitaph's artist.
Okay.
So he designed that E.
Damn.
He designed the Big Daddy Roth monster coming out of the car.
Oh, yeah, I know that. Yeah.
And so he designed all their iconic logos.
That's amazing. These are my last couple of questions. Do you have any regrets?
Yes. Not calling Jason on the night that I wanted to call him. I decided to put it off a day, you know, and I was like, I'm going to call Jason when I get to the hotel, and have that in my mind when I got the news.
Holy shit. Yeah, that's heavy, man.
That was definitely a regret. You know, I think we toured just the right amount for the band and for the family. So that's not a regret.
Yeah.
But, you know, I wish I would have surfed a little more.
You feel like you're too old to surf now?
I still surf, but I should have paddled out. Always paddle back out. That's a great book by Sean Thompson.
You schooled me on so many books in this shit. I'm
going to give you more, too.
I wish I was a better reader. There's audiobooks, too, right?
Yeah. Fuck yeah. Punkguru.com. You can find all the best books.
What would be some of your... Do you have any daily rituals?
Daily rituals. You know, I always wanted to meditate more. I've always wanted to do yoga more, but it has never become a ritual for me. Yeah. You know, I do it when I really need it, when I'm really stiff or I really need the brain time to disconnect. But
it's hard to meditate, right?
The daily ritual for me is probably getting the kids off to school and then checking the surf.
Are you a coffee guy?
I like to. I'm a coffee guy. Make the coffee and go and check the surf because I grew up seeing the ocean every day. So we had a big view of the whole bay, my parents' house, and then I don't have it now, so I got to drive down there or ride a bike down there, or jog down there, whatever. But I always need to see the ocean at one time a day. It's a big presence in my life.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
so you're pretty close to live. You live close to it.
I live about a mile and a half away now.
Fuck, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, so I always got to take a look. You
Yeah.
know, make sure it's still there.
And also, you guys always had a East Coast edge to you. I know this is not one of the questions, but like I was saying before, you guys, out of all the West Coast bands, you guys, for me, Pennywise has more of an East. It could be like an East Coast hardcore band in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Was there some big inspirations from the East Coast too? Besides,
Definitely.
who you grew up with out here?
A couple. Dag Nasty was
Greatest.
a huge.
We talked about that the other day. Yeah.
If you listen to Wig Out at Danko's and just a lot of the Dave Smalley stuff.
Can I say?
Yeah, and Jason made me a tape that had a bunch of Dag Nasty on it, a bunch of BYO stuff, Lizard just exercises, and it's
Great
like
song.
so many like melodic and cool songs that came out of that band, and
Yes.
plus the PMA was there.
Yes.
So huge inspiration. And then Gorilla Biscuits,
Yeah.
right when we were kind of putting it together, that album came out, and just the whole attitude of, you know, kind of a little more metallic guitar. Like I said, I'm not a metal fan, but just Fletcher was into it, and so they just kind of had a little more hardcore vibe, and
But melody too. Yeah.
And then after all the great bands that came out of that, but obviously, there's a spirit there that we had in the surf skate scene down in the South Bay of, for lack of a better word, bros. You know,
community,
bros,
unity, all
girls,
that.
you know, and unity was a huge thing. Unity Surfboards was one of the biggest surf shops down there, but we definitely felt that, you know, because people hung out at the beaches and that sense of family, and that's the first thing that turned me on to your band was that song, the family song.
My friend's got me family.
Of like that's our vibe too, and it's
awesome.
like, and never had any competition with those bands. It felt like as soon as we go back there, we're gonna be bros with all those guys too, and it's gonna be rad, you know.
It's true, it happened too.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that PMA is something that's really important that in my life, and keeping that going. There's probably one of my favorite songs that I wrote the lyrics for every single day, and it's about leaving regrets behind, not worrying about the future, 24 hours in my life, and that's what it's all about. And it's such a, you see that in pop psychology all over the memes everywhere, talking about having no regrets and don't live in the past. And I wrote that line so long ago. It's like, man, all that matters is this 24 that I'm in right now, and trying to live that the best, and having this diligence of living your life that way and keeping that in mind. So
I love that. That's one of my questions, that you consider yourself an optimist or pessimist, but I know the answer for that.
You know, I'm an optimist in that I believe that the opening line on our first album is off the song "Wouldn't It Be Nice." Time where man meets man with a glare, but with a smile. Like, I have a vision of many things to come. Time where man meets man with a glare, without a glare, but with a smile. And the idea, that's like the perfect kicking off point for our band. Like, I have a vision of a future where everyone does get along or tries their best to get along. So I'm optimistic for that. Definitely, it's hard not to be pessimistic with the stuff that's going on in the world
today.
But that's what gives us the passion to fight, you know, and to put our music out there and our message out there, and that's what it's always been about.
That's great. Top 5 inspirational musicians, or top 5 influences of your life, you think? It's a hard one.
I would always say family is always your top inspiration, but I would say number 1 would be Ralph Waldo Emerson, and then number 2 would be Keith Morris.
Sick. That's
and then okay,
that's 2.
John Updike is my favorite writer. That's 3, and then my dad.
Fucking awesome.
For sure.
Your dad sounded awesome, man. He sounded like an awesome man.
Yeah, he was. He was great. And then
5.
Milo Ackerman.
Sick.
Yeah.
That's great.
And Greg Gaffron. Greg Gaffron. So
6.
we're going to tie for 5.
He went to school with all those guys. It's fucking crazy, man.
Yeah. We all
Sucker
went to the same
jerks.
school. You know, you guys got to come down to the South Bay, and I'll give you the tour that I gave to Marco.
To Hano, yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I would love that, man.
Yeah.
I've never been down there before.
Yeah, you guys got to come down. If you haven't been in the South Bay, you haven't been to LA yet. And you guys lived here since 2000.
Yeah, from what he said on this whole thing, it's like it's a whole different world that nobody talks about because it's always LA, but there's so much history in where you're from. It's so many great bands and Beach Boys, all that.
Yeah, it's a great scene, and got to have you guys down there and just hang and catch some surf.
Yeah, my son's been surfing. I don't surf. I've never really tried it, but my son's definitely 5 in the morning to go surfing every weekend.
See, he caught the bug.
He did. He's a Cali kid. He was born here.
Oh my God.
If you can skate, you can surf.
Yeah.
If you can snowboard,
I don't think that's the same thing. If you can skate, you can snowboard though.
Yeah, I know.
Toby had a snowboard.
It's way different.
Did?
Yeah, it's way different.
It's tough
and
until.
you rode like this, skating downhill. You do that.
Yeah. It crouches.
And we were like, stand up.
Do you have any tattoos?
I just, you know, it's funny. Whoops, I almost pulled you out. I didn't have a lot. I got the girls' daughters' names.
Oh, awesome.
Got all the
Yeah, I
daughters.
never thought you had tattoos. Yeah, I like that.
And then I have X, Jawbreaker, the Ocean, Leo, PMA, little plus sign.
Yeah.
And then this is Taxameka, which is Swedish. My dad was 100% Swede, and it means thank you so much.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so my grandma used to say Taxameka.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, and they say talk all the time.
Talk.
Daniel,
Yeah.
our friend,
Oh, he's
Swedish,
gonna be so
he's
happy
always
your
saying,
dad was
talk.
Swedish.
Yeah.
I might bite that. I like that plus sign for PMA. That's pretty freaking awesome. I didn't even thought about that.
I know. Everyone's all, is that a sperm? Well, no, that's a Leo.
Yeah. I think we're done. Well, let me thank. Well, first, I want to thank you for being on the podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you for everything you contributed to music. Thanks for always looking out for H2O. Thanks for being a great dad. Thanks for being inspiration for everything you've done and continue to do. And I appreciate being part of my life and honored to call you my friend.
Right back at you, man.
I really appreciate
Thank you
having
so
on
much
here.
for having me. Thanks everyone for listening, and keep doing it.
I think we covered a lot of shit.
Yeah, I know,
I
right?
think it's been almost, what time we start? 11? Almost 2 hours.
I told you I got a lot. I got a lot of
I love
baggage.
it. You want that? Yeah, we might need to do a part 2 someday, but I know where you live, so we're good.
Well, I'll interview you in the South Bay.
That'd be sick. All right, thank you, bro.
Thank
That
you.
was awesome. So we're back real quick. I'm not letting Jim leave because he just saw my wife's Cure shirt. And he talked about how much he loved the Cure. So I want to get into just real quick, just a little bit of your new wave roots because we didn't talk about that.
Uh-huh.
So you loved all that type of music growing up too?
Oh, absolutely. I was a huge fan of, I guess it started with just the whole MTV thing and all these bands just coming into your television.
Yeah.
And it was impossible not to, you know. There was Men at Work was one of the first big bands that started, but then, you know, The Cure came out, and they had a different vibe from everything that you were hearing. Plus, they looked so strange. And then I got really into the Smiths. There was all these punk clubs that actually played a lot of new wave stuff.
Yeah.
There was a band called, who's that? A band called ABC.
Yeah.
Haircut 100 and Duran Duran and all these bands. And like we would go to these, there were discos, but like punk clubs. And there's a place called the Odyssey, a place called Power Tool. Guys from Chili Pepper would go to that place.
That's awesome.
And all these people would go there, and even though they were into the punk scene, you know, they'd come and they'd, you know, Soft Cell and all these
Soft Cell
bands
was
are
sick.
playing.
Tainted Love, yeah.
That's when Tainted Love was huge, and I got into everything. I wasn't a hater, you know.
Yeah.
There's
Open-minded
the
kid.
hardcore scene where like you could only like
I
Adolescents,
never liked that.
Black Flag, and all the above. And it's like, man, I would, as much as I would go to see X and Circle Jerks, I would go and see, you know, go to some disco and dance around like a fool to some new wave band. But I wanted to meet girls. I wanted to hang out with chicks, man. You go to a Circle Jerk show and just get beat up by dudes. You know, I wanted to go dance with girls and have a good time. You know. So
Yeah, you're just living. Like you liked all types of music. I like that. You're open-minded about it.
And then really got into the Smiths. Huge Smiths fan. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And then I in college, I saw The Cure play at San Diego State, and I wrote a review for the school newspaper.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Yeah.
Give it a great review, obviously.
Got a great review.
Holy shit.
So, yeah, I
Still
think,
love them, man. Yeah.
I think someone outed me to Fletcher one time and said, Jim's a new waver. He's not punk. He's a new waver.
Wow. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll embrace it. That's amazing. And that's you know what's so crazy is that like on the podcast, Milo, who grew up where you grew up, said he was a new waver first before he was a punker too.
Yeah.
He was a new wave. I'm a new wave. He grew up a server, but he was a new wave kid.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.
And he was a cross country dude.
Cross country guy.
He was
right?
a runner. Yeah.
Wow. Did you know that real quick? The HR was a Olympic pole vaulter
No.
and a swimmer. Yeah, he grew up in Liverpool.
Wow.
And that's what
crazy.
he did. That's how he could do backflips and stuff. He told me that.
That's what's really cool about these podcasts and things you're doing is like you have the time to get all the stuff out of people. Like I guarantee a tiny percentage of my people who enjoy our music know that I was ever a born again Christian. Or
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, yeah. Or like you can imagine.
I did not know that. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right, well, awesome. Thank you, man. I got you long enough. I appreciate you coming up today. And
Thanks,
look
Toby.
out for part 2. He interviews me in Hermosa Beach.
That's right.
Bye.
Thanks.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. Please rate, review, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet to this podcast, please do that. And whatever platform you are listening to this on, I'm glad you found me. You can rate me and review me on there also. So thank you guys sincerely for the support. I cannot wait for you guys to hear the next one.